Hey, so this is going to be a quick devlog, probably quick. I don't know exactly how long it's going to take. I don't have a script for this one, just some bullet points to talk about. I'm going to be going over just the basic mechanics that I've programmed in, like just the movement types, things you can do. This isn't going to be, like I said in the first devlog, this isn't the final texture for the main character. It's just a color guide, so I know where to place things when I make the final texture. But anyway, I'm just going to talk about the basic mechanics, the running, the jumping, etc. So right now, with the jumping, like the basic jump is variable. You can tap it to get just a little bit of height. You can hold it down for different amounts of time, and that'll give you a different height to your jump. There are four main types of movement. There's your basic jump. There is a spin jump, there's a dive, and there's a drop. The drop, I didn't want to lift the ground pound. I didn't want to just steal that entirely, so I animated it as an axe kick instead. I think that's pretty cool. I like it. I like the idea of it. So the spin jump, there are two different ways of doing it. The main purpose of the spin jump is to aid platforming. So when you're moving and you spin jump, it cancels your horizontal momentum initially, and then it lets you keep moving around. If you do so there's a certain height you can reach by doing a regular jump and then a spin jump. If you do a spin jump from a standing position, you get a much greater height to your jump, but you can't move sideways as fast, and it cancels your horizontal momentum initially as well. And so this is mainly to serve like the same sort of function that Mario's crouching backflip does in Mario 64. It's made to aid in platforming. You go up to something that's really tall but is a tricky jump, and you just do a bit of that. It lets you make those really tricky jumps. The next thing is the dive. Normally you roll out of it, and you can just keep moving immediately afterwards. You roll out of it and you change. You can also rotate in the air while you dive. I'm debating whether or not I'll leave that in. I kind of like it. I kind of like being able to style on, being able to do stylish things like a little 360 no scope in the air. I like being able to do that. It amuses me. I think I'm going to leave it in. There was a bug that was funny to me as well, where when you do a spin jump, if you turn, the spin will either speed up or slow down. I decided to fix that. I decided to change that. But I decided to take that one out. But I'm going to leave it in with diving because I think it looks fun. Let's see. So normally you roll out of the dive if you just press the button. But I have a little timer set up so that there's a short timer that plays when you press the button initially, and if I think it's a half second later, if the button is pressed, pressed down while when that timer goes up. So if you're mashing the button or if you're holding the button down, you slide across the ground, and so instead of just rolling out of it. So that's fun for if you're on a hill. You can slide down it. You also slide automatically if you dive onto ice, regardless of whether or not you press the button. There's a bit of so you have a bit of influence over the direction, over your movement while you're sliding. But because of the way I have the ice set up, that's enough to overcome friction. So you can actually speed up while you're sliding on the ice. And I kind of like that as a feature. It's kind of like in Super Mario Sunshine, when you spray the ground with water and then you slide over it, you speed up and you can go super far and super fast that way. And I kind of like that, so I'm going to leave that in. So that's the dive. And then the drop, the button on my controller is a little finicky, but the way the drop works is you have a moment, if you can interrupt the spin with a dive or a spin jump. So you can dive and then drop and then spin jump. You can also spin jump straight out of a dive, but like you can interrupt the spin with a spin jump, which is good for, like, for example, I might make it so that certain actions, like the bounce pad, these are bounce pads, by the way. I haven't textured them, but these are bounce pads. So like you can interrupt a bounce pad movement with a drop. You can also interrupt dives with a drop, so that's useful for platforming. Like if you were to dive over this platform here and then drop, you can interrupt that. You can interrupt it that way. You can also spin jump straight out of a dive, but the drop is going to serve a couple functions. I might make it so that you can only cancel a dive with a drop, so that you have to drop and then spin jump to cancel out of it, just to add some interest. Because right now you can just spin jump straight out of a dive, and I'm not sure I like that. I'm still like kind of between features in that way, or between specifics. I think I will make it so that you have to drop out of a dive in order to spin jump. Yeah, I think I will add that as a feature. So expect that when I do eventually. I'll probably release a demo of this once I've got like 1 or 2 levels available. So expect that feature in the demo. Let's see. So what's next? So there is wall jumping. It's a little basic, but it's wall jumping. I haven't tested successive wall jumping, but it should work. So in Super Mario 64, normally when you hit a wall, you just bounce off of it. And I've got it so that when you dive against a wall, you just bounce off of it. But normally you just bounce off of it unless you press the jump button, and then you wall jump. But I opted instead for the way that Sunshine handles it, where you kind of stick to the wall and slide down. And so you can, like, I like that better because you can kind of choose when to wall jump. You have a second after you hit the wall. I like that better. I like the way it handles the wall collision better. Let's see. So next is, there's also, let's see. Okay, here we go. So you can attack as well. I haven't implemented a full like health and damage system yet, but I've got the basics of it. Like you can attack. I modeled it after the way that it's animated in Super Mario 64. So you can just bash these around. These are physics objects, so you can just smack these around some. You can also pick them up. You can pick them up and carry them. Like you can jump, and while you're holding them, it disables, like you can't spin jump, you can't dive, you can't wall jump naturally while you're holding something. Let's see. So that's the grabbing and throwing. You can also swim. I've got it so that the way I did this, I want to put things in the water I want to put enemies in the water eventually that instill a feeling of panic in the player. Things like the Unagi eel from Mario 64, things like that, like things that make it scary to be in the water. And so I wanted the player to panic, and I wanted to reward the player's panic. So the way I have that set up is, instead of the timed button presses from Mario 64, you mash the button. So like when you press it slowly, you move like this, you move a certain speed, and the faster you press it, the faster you go. So there's 3 animations for swimming, depending on how fast you're going. There's this one for slow swimming, for medium swimming, and then there's really fast swimming when you panic. You can also get hit. So there are 4 different types of getting hit. There's getting hit in the water. So when you get hit in the water, you spin backwards like that. Let's see. So there's also 3 different types of hit. I haven't textured these. I should, to be able to like differentiate them visually, but I know which ones are which. So there's a soft hit, which just moves you back a bit. Probably won't do any damage. Like I said, I haven't implemented health yet. There's the medium, so that's a soft hit. There's a medium hit, that knocks you back, locks up your controls for a moment. And then there's this one, which I have plans for. This is a hard hit, which just flings you back like that and like you're stuck on the ground for quite a while. And the plans I have for that are, like, I plan to have like an item in a level that's just like a giant hammer that doesn't deal damage to you but knocks you back like that and sends you flying like halfway across the level just as a method of transport. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Let's see, so that's the swimming. Next is the climbing. I put a lot of effort into the climbing. It has one central limitation. There are 3 types of climbing. There's climbing on a pole. You can go up, you can slide down, you can spin around, move around the pole. There's climbing on a pole, there's climbing on walls, and he'll align. I'll get to that in a second, like some specifics of that. So there's climbing on walls, and then there's climbing on ceilings. So right now, I struggled a bit there because I recently decreased the height of the jump you get from jumping off of climbing surfaces. I think I'll undo that. I like the larger jump better. But yeah, you can climb on ceilings. The only limitation to this is you can't go from directly from climbing on ceilings to climbing on a wall. You have to like come off of the surface first. It doesn't work smoothly like that. You should be able. I added some code recently so that you should be able to move directly from climbing surfaces of one type to another object of the same type. But I haven't set that up in the test environment yet to test. But I have set this up so that with wall climbing, like I have this set up so that he aligns to the surface he's climbing on, and that's done with ray casts. I could have done it so that he like aligns to the surface that he's on, like directly from the surface, but like that could have some clipping issues where like if he's on like the bottom of like a tilted surface like this, like his feet could end up clipping through a nearby surface. So I have it set with ray casts so that it's like an approximation of what he's climbing on, so that I think that looks better. So he's able to climb, and so this is done dynamically. Like I can make pretty much any type of mesh, and he'll be able to climb on it, and he'll align himself to it automatically. So that's the climbing. I've got some plans for the climbing, for the things I want to do with the climbing. See, I've got bounce pads set up as well. And the way these are set up is they have like a direction and a magnitude programmed into them, and they fling you in that direction at that magnitude when you touch them. I've also got it I've got it so that you can influence the direction you're going if you move the control stick, but you have very limited influence in the air. They also work with certain grabbable objects, so if they touch, they get flung around. So that's fun. I've also got it so that you can like directly interact with physics objects. Like he can run around on physics objects and jump off of them. Like here, like I've got this little small obstacle course set up with these physics objects, and I've been greatly enjoying just like even this small like platforming challenge. I've been really enjoying doing for testing the way the platforming works. He's also, that little shadow underneath him, it's not a dynamic shadow. I turned off the dynamic shadows. I'm debating whether or not I'll use them. I might use them in like some outdoor areas. I'll probably just keep them turned off and just like bake some shadows in for larger objects. Like you can see that some in Super Mario 64, some objects will have shadows, but they'll just be like baked shadows. They won't they're not dynamic. So this one that I've got is actually an object that's the product of like a ray cast down from the player to hit objects. And this is like, even if I use dynamic shadows, I'll probably keep this just to aid in platforming. Because, like, in games like Super Mario 64 and even Mario Sunshine, with, like, more interesting looking shadows, they're kept directly below the player to aid platforming. Even though, like in Sunshine, the shadows go, like, a bit to the side, but they're kept directly below the player to aid in platforming. So I've made this little shadow to aid with that. You may have seen this shadow over here. I'm testing using them on larger objects. So, like, this shows, like, some of the issues that can arise from using it, like clipping through the terrain or being, like, very obvious when it tilts. So, like, I plan to be careful with those, be judicious with them. But I've also tested them, like, some of these objects have them. That one doesn't have them, but the others do. You see, you've got, like, a shadow here, cast down from the block that way. See, like, if I throw it over this other block, it gets cast onto the block as well. Like, there, it runs over it. Let's see, what other things? Are there other things? I think that's about all the actual features that I've built in. Let's see, this is a test of slippery surfaces. So when you just touch them, you automatically start slipping. Made a little slide down into the water. Let's see. And so I think he's gone, but let me reset the test environment. So this little pink dude I set up as, like, a test for an enemy that I'm going to have in the game. This is a homunculus. He's got a little butt. If you get too close to him, right now he's very simply programmed. If you get too close to him, he just runs away, directly away from you. But this was mainly just to test his animations. Like, he runs away, and every so often he looks back over his shoulder to see if you're still chasing him. And he's got a little shadow as well. And if you punch him, he disappears. Oh, there he goes. And down into the water. I haven't programmed him I haven't programmed interactions with water yet. Like, he's just a really basic enemy just to have running around. So that's the main features of the game. This is going to be most of what's in the game. Not everything. There are other things that I have planned to add in. But this is the main mechanics. I'm going to get started on the actual levels soon. I can show you some things, like I can show you small error there with the shadows. Like, I can show you some things that I've got. So this is a very basic area that's going to have. This is where I've got some set pieces for the first area that you enter into. I'm only showing this because it's the first area. So you're going to see these immediately when you enter into the game. So, like, I've got just, like, a basic grass texture. This is actually a photo that I took of some grass. So, like, you've got a tower over there. You've got just, like, this basic tilted pedestal. Again, this is based off of a texture of some concrete that I took a picture of. You got these standing stones. You got this circle of standing stones. This is actually the same model, but there's the way I made these models in Blender is I used a high poly model and sculpted it, and then there's a thing called a remesh that you can do, and you can decrease the like voxels in it. You can decrease the poly count. And so I used the same model, but I remeshed them slightly differently each time. So I've rigged these up so you can interact with them. Here we go. So you can climb them that way and you can interact with them. You see this level has shadows still enabled. Yeah, I've rigged these up so that you can, like, climb on them and wall jump off of them and interact with them. And then the inside of this tower, it's going to have, like, these ruined pillars. platformed upon. You're going to be able to scale the inside of this tower. I won't show any more, but you're going to be able to scale the inside of this tower to reach the top. And I won't say what's at the top, but these are just some set pieces. I've got them here in this level so that I can size them and rig them up and get them ready so I can place them and arrange them in some terrain that I'm going to make. I made these the same way that I made this player model. Like I made the player model in Blender as well. That there's an error with his hair there. That doesn't show up in Blender. Like in Blender, that's just a completely like flat plane. Like there's that error there with his hair, but I kind of like it. It kind of adds a bit of dimension to his hair, so I think I'll keep it. I also think I'll keep it because if I was to redo it, I'd have to redo the texture, and I'd rather the color guide texture, and I'd rather not do that. So that's about everything I have at the moment. I'm not going to be able to work on the game for a couple days because I've got a test coming up. I've got an exam coming up, last exam for the semester. So once that's done, I can I'll be able to speed up development. Hopefully, my schedule will free up some during the summer, so I should be able to get more done with the game. I've been absolutely loving working on this. It's been so much fun working on the mechanics and just making like the set pieces and putting the levels together. I'm really excited to keep working on it. The next thing that I need to work on, aside from making a level, is the camera. Because right now, the camera follows the player very precisely and doesn't really change orientation when he's moving around. I need to rework the camera because like the camera, there was a lot of work that went into the camera in Super Mario 64. I remember hearing like in like a small video about it on YouTube, there was like one guy working on that for like a year. Like there was just one dude that was tasked with making the camera as good as possible, and it was just his sole job to do that. So I need to rework the camera because it's just not what I want it to be right now. But I think I'll work like kind of back and forth on the camera and the level. But that's what I've got so far, and there will be one or two other things that I've got planned for the mechanics of the game. Let's see, how long is this run on? It's like 20 minutes. So it's not the short devlog that I intended it to be, but this is pretty much all I've got for the game at the moment. Once I finish like a couple levels, I'll probably release a demo on like Itch.io or something. I'll get something up. I haven't figured that out how exactly I'm going to do that yet, but I'll figure something out. So yeah, peace.